Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Bartek. I'm a complete fuck up. I'm from Detroit, but I'm here in Berlin. And I found these guys, and Berlin Metal TV is fucking awesome. And you should watch it every single time it's promoted, and it's online, and this is where you're going to find the best shit in Berlin. Well, my name is Ryan Bartek. I'm a writer from the United States, and I'm traveling Europe right now working on a book called Fortress Europe, The Big Shiny Prison Volume 2. It's the sequel of a book that I wrote about the United States Underground. I traveled all over the United States in 2007 for 293 days, nonstop. Sometimes I had downtime because I had to work, but even when I was working in San Diego and LA, I was saving up money to go back on the road. My background, I grew up in the Detroit area until I was 25, and then I came to the point where I was very unhappy, so I quit my band and gave away all my possessions. And I went on the road and I lived on Greyhound bus, which is basically like Eurolines. So imagine about 650 hours on Eurolines within a 9-month span. I traveled all over the U.S. Along the way, the book I did, The Big Shiny Prison, it was a half travel book and half interviews, but when I interview people, it's more like you're reading the dialogue in a real book as opposed to a Q&A with lots of pictures. Because, in metal journalism, punk rock journalism, you have books like Lords of Chaos, American Hardcore, stuff like that. And this book I wanted to get real life as it happened, everything. So it's all about getting from point A to point B, and then what would happen after. So I went all over the United States, over 35 states, and I did this on the equivalent of like 1,500 euros for the entire year. So a lot of times I slept in the streets. I'd have to eat out of garbage cans. I didn't have the money to eat. I went to, soup kitchens, homeless shelters to get, food, anything I could. And along the way, I'd meet really great people that would take me in and house me and help me and bring me all sorts of places. So some of the bands and groups that appear in the first book are Cephalic Carnage, Psyopus, Pig Destroyer, Phobia, Brutal Truth, Repulsion, Anal Cunt. The old bass player from Rat used to live on my couch in San Diego. Genghis Tron, Impaled, Kylesa, Angelic Process, Job for Cowboy, Waco Jesus, President Barack Obama is in my book. MDC, Stalag, Ludacra, Kill the Client, Abysmal Dawn, Foxy Shazam, Downtown Brown, who I toured numerous times with. I think they're one of the best punk rock bands in the United States. They're now on DC Jam Records, which is the same as TSOL and Fishbone. Met Sid Haig, a whole bunch of underground film icons, horror movie icons. So in the in-between period, it took a few years to save the money and get ready. So now I'm doing Europe, and I'm 3.5 weeks in. I got to London on June 2nd, spent about a week there, and then I went to Paris, France, and then to Amsterdam, Netherlands, and then from Amsterdam to Berlin. And I've been in Berlin for about a week. I came here specifically around to see Bethlehem at the Under the Black Sun Fest because I'm a massive fan of Bethlehem. No one really knows who they are in the United States. They're very underground. They were one of the bands that got me into black metal to begin with because some people, they got into black metal because they learned about, the church burnings and this sort of thing that was going on. Whereas, I listened to the Gummo soundtrack. And I don't know if Gummo was a popular movie in Europe, but, it's pretty out there. So, the Gummo soundtrack, that got me into all sorts of stuff. That's a whole discussion in itself. But as it stands, next week I'm going to be in Berlin for 5 or 6 more days interviewing bands. And it's not just metal. Obviously, I'm a giant metalhead, and I want to cover that. But also punk rock, industrial music, artists, writers. Because I feel that all of us, despite maybe what we're into in all these different classifications and sectors and ways of putting things, our struggle is all together. And I feel that, we're all these sort of Auslanders. Ich bin ein Islander, all of us. We should look beyond, music or styles or anything that puts us in, because we're all together. And it's the same forces of control throughout time that have kept us separate, these fascist control systems. And in the United States, we're becoming more and more right-wing. In Europe, as I talk to people, not necessarily Germany, because Germany is very moderate and very liberal, very left-wing. but it seems that there's a greater tendency to go more right-wing politics, against xenophobic, scared of outsiders, condemning squats, and looking, these are bad people, this and this and this. So it is my hope that when people read this book, whenever it's complete, they will have a greater understanding that we are all together in one big, we're all mess ups and screw ups and the freaks and weirdos of society. And I don't think we should. I think we should look at each other and maybe communicate more. So that's what I hope my book will do. When I'm done with it, I'm going to put it online for free. A lot of people, they do what they do. They're concerned with money. Now, my first book, The Big Shiny Prison, I spent about the equivalent of, I'd say, about 6,000 euros making it. I put it online for free. This book probably cost me about 3,000 euros. I'm putting it out for free. All of my records that I've done, I've been in, like I said, a number of different projects. This is thousands of US dollars, so probably about 3,000 or 4,000 euros. Put it all out for free because I want to express myself, and I want people to have it, easy. And so that's where I'm at right now. This book I'm doing right now, this is really my 5th book. It's going to be the 3rd book that people have access to. My first book was called The Silent Burning. It came out in 2005 on a small label in Detroit, and it was immediately banned in the stores in Detroit because it was so raw. It's very similar to if you read the Henry Rollins books like Ice Cream or Naked Lunch or Mel Durer by Lau Tremont. Along those lines, I wrote it for self-therapy to deal with depression and very different things. The second book is The Big Shiny Prison. The 3rd book will be Fortress Europe. And I have 2 other books which are more autobiographical about my own life. As a writer, when people review my work, they compare me to a bunch of different writers, and he's ripping off this person, he's this and this. But a lot of times it's just not true because I haven't heard of the people that they're referencing me. For me personally, my influences, I'm big on the Beat generation, stuff like Jack Kerouac, William S. Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg, Lou Welch, people like that. Also very big into Henry Miller. If anybody's read Tropic of Cancer or Black Spring or Tropic of Capricorn, I like the Henry Rollins stuff. I like classical writers, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy's cool. Fernando Pessoa is one of my favorite writers. Hunter S. Thompson, of course. Nobody can deny him. But here's the difference. A lot of people compare me to Hunter S. Thompson. They say, oh, you're ripping him off. But the truth is, say Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It was 3 separate days over the course of a year. And he lied and made it sound like it was 3 days in a row. My book is 293 days straight, and every word is true. So you can take your own comparison. But I love Hunter S. Thompson. There's no journalist in the United States that they'll say otherwise. But I try to do totally real nonfiction. And it might sound like I'm exaggerating some things sometimes, but I'm totally honest. But, you're a writer. You have to not necessarily embellish, but, you make it sound more interesting. But, it's all reality, even if my style sounds a little over the top at times. So outside of that, music-wise, I've played in a number of bands. My last band, my full-time band in Detroit was AKA Mabus, which was like if you took Frank Zappa and you mixed it with Napalm Death and the Dead Kennedys and every style of metal known to man. And there's very few bands that sounded like that. I was mainly the main songwriter, but I'm not going to discredit the other musicians that worked with me because they were all very good. I do Sasquatch Agnostic, which is my grindcore band. There's a complete mammography that's 3 records. I do everything but play the drums, and there's a couple other singers here and there, but I mostly do the vocals, and my vocals are crazy, screaming, black metal kind of sounding. I do spoken word. I tour a comedy, opening up for a punk rock and metal band sometime, which is very hard to do a spoken word set for a bunch of metalheads. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I have them on the floor rolling if they love it. So I've done two national U.S. tours with that. One was a 2.5 week, and another was a 6.5 week tour, opening for Downtown Brown, which I mentioned before. And I also do a acoustic project, but it's not like a hippie, crimey river kind of birds and bees nature project. It's a very punk rock, in your face sort of thing. My new album, the title, I go under the name Jack Cassidy when I do that, which is the cheesiest name I could ever think, because all those songs were I guess, busking songs, I guess you'd say it over here, where you play for money on the street. So all those songs were written in that point. And the name is Jack Cassidy, which is like Jack Courtney and Cassidy put together, because I said it was the silliest, cheesiest thing, kitschiest thing I could think to call it. So Jack Cassidy, and then the new album is called Anti-Volk, which it's all original music, even though they're covers to a degree. Some of them are covers, but I changed the lyrics to make them my own. Like the first album was called The Real Man in Black, which is talks about Johnny Cash, but now I'm the real man in black, the satanic Johnny Cash. So the new album is called Anti-Volk. One of the covers is actually Ich tu der Weh by Rammstein, which is a song that's banned in Germany. So I was trying to hopefully get that on German radio to get fined or make a big stink, but it turned out great. It's the only song I ever sung in German on. I don't really know any German. The only German I know is from Rammstein songs, really. I'll just give you the CD. You can put something on after this. So I am traveling Europe, as I said, and I will be here until August 16th. My plane leaves from Paris back to Portland, Oregon, where I've been living. I hope not to go back to the United States because there's a vast media blackout happening right now. But the reality with the Fukushima and Japan disaster is that there is now radiation all over the United States, and people are getting sick. The rainwater in San Francisco was 18,000 times the normal level. There's cancerous radioactive isotopes in our drinking water all over the United States, our tap water. This stuff lasts anywhere from 90 days to 6 billion years. So I believe very strongly and personally that when people realize what's happening, there will be a great panic in the United States. And when people realize there's nowhere to run, it's going to get very bad. So as awful as it is, I'm hoping people realize this sooner than later, because I don't want to be there when it happens. And I cannot legally claim political asylum in Europe because, again, they're saying it's not going on, it's not this, but all the independent journalists, they're on it, as well as the BP oil spill and Core Exit 9500. You should Google that and learn about that. It's a horrible situation any way you look at it, and it's very dangerous, and I'm scared that I was exposed to radiation for living in Portland, Oregon. We're up to the point where I left 3 days after Fukushima. Everyone was sick for months. Everybody had flu-like symptoms, but nobody was actually sick. And people were talking about their teeth becoming loose. People had hair falling out. And now that I look at the statistics, there was a 35% increase in infant deaths and miscarriages within May alone. And the number keeps rising. The cows are giving radioactive milk in Washington and Oregon. Radioactive isotopes they're detected everywhere. So it's very terrifying. So I don't know what will happen. And as I said, I feel like even just the world in general, people talk about December 21st, 2012 as being the end of the world, this number that's been in all these cultures. I don't know about that because I don't necessarily buy into anything. I'm very skeptic. I'm very cynical. I wouldn't say completely atheist because I'd say more agnostic. I don't believe in any major religion. I don't know if I'd believe in God in any normal context. But nothing makes sense. Everything's crazy. So the long story short is that I don't know what will happen next, but I do feel that we're at a turning point in history of the world, especially with the Arab Revolution that's happening right now. That's a great media blackout in itself. I feel that that is the story of the century right now, and everything that will happen with that. So, the United States is in a horrible situation. So, I'm hoping to find a way to legally stay in Europe, and that's where I'm at right now. Okay, well, speaking of doing things DIY, as I said, the reason I'm doing these books is to show everybody's different thought in all these different subcultures, and so that maybe people will read them when they wouldn't in a normal way and take them in. Like the punk rock scene has always been very DIY. That was the whole point. You make your own shirts, you make your own records. With heavy metal in general, there's great people, and obviously I'm really into heavy metal, but for a long time that's been lacking. There was this idea of a hierarchy, or that you had to sign to a label and the label books your shows for you, or that you have to go to someone else, like this whole idea, and then you look up to people like, oh, there's Lemmy, he's a god, or there's, oh, Metallica, they're so big, they're so nothing. But it's kind of ridiculous. You have to take it upon yourself to do it. And the reality is that the things are not controlled anymore with with the media. You know, things are not controlled by record labels anymore. Now that we had MySpace, we have Facebook, all these different things, SoundCloud, Bandcamp. You know, the power is in your hands, and really the only way to do it is to live in a van like you're a pirate ship. I mean, when I was touring in the United States, there were many times that we thought we were doomed because we'd pull into a town, we were out of money, and we thought we'd have to go to sperm banks and jack off and make money that way, or give blood and all that, and maybe you have to do that. My best advice is strategically. A lot of people will never say this, they won't tell you this, but even what I'm doing now, like, okay, I'm doing my book, but I'm also promoting my own music. So what I'm doing personally is called a city invasion tour. The city invasion tour is when you show up in a city and you hang out for a week. If you're in a band, you show up and you find all these venues, okay? You play a show every single night of the week, because if you're just touring, if you just hit one show and you play for like 15, 20 people, and then you go to the next one, or next one, or next one, next one, it doesn't really add up. You got to like stick around for a minute, make people care. So my advice is to do it. Live in a van like pirates. Say you go to Prague or something, and it's weird because promoters are strange a lot of times because they think, okay, this band is playing three shows that they know about in the same week, and then they're going to cancel your show because you're not going to bring people, you're not going to make any money, and this and this and this. But if you're a touring band and nobody knows about you anyway, what does it fucking matter, you know? So it's kind of like, maybe you get a decent gig where the promoter is promoting really heavy at a more known place. And then you find a house show that's very hush-hush, you know, it's this DIY kind of squatty place. And you do shows like that. So if you can take your band and just hang out in a van for like a week in a city, and then you meet as many people as you can and be as social as you can and hand out 1 million flyers and free CDs. And you should also be, you know, I understand, you know, you spend a lot of money, you make a record, at least get a 3-song sampler and spend the money to make like 1,000 burned CDs and hand them out to everyone. I mean, because you have to make people personally care about your band. It's not good enough to just be like, we're a good metal band. You know, you have to be, you know, cutthroat about it. You have to be in your face. And I think people know if you're phony or not. Like when you meet someone, like you're on tour, and then you meet someone's like, oh yeah, I thought you were really cool, and then you just talk about yourself and all your projects and this and this. Like, no, just be a human, because we all just want to be humans with each other, you know? That's the best advice I can give. And the thing is, do not be scared of strangers. Do not be weird. Be open to things, because you know, as I said, we're all in it together. We're all part of something greater. Well, I'll say, yeah, about European capitals that I've been so far. London was kind of what I expected it to be. It was pretty oppressive with CCTV, that there's cameras everywhere staring you in the face. And it feels like, again, it's like the government cracking down, squatters, this and this and this and this. And it feels like everywhere in Europe, everywhere in the United States, everywhere you go, it's just the last shred of the 1960s, that freedom, that role with the weirdos will win. It's just being stamped out with a boot, just like, you know. And then I go to Paris, and I had these great expectations of Paris. But Paris is just, it's the world's biggest museum, and it's full of assholes. How do you say? Scheisse faces. I don't know. Yeah, Pissfest or whatever. Yeah, Paris was, it was so weird. It was like being in North Korea or something, where it's this society where they're like, if you don't speak French, we're not going to talk to you. And then they're just in France land, and they're moving forward. And I'd never been in a city where, you know, even if I go to somewhere like Berlin or New York, I feel like people are alive, and I feel like I can feel the energy around me. And Paris, it was just totally cold, and there were all these people going by me. So I wanted out of there so fast, and I hated it. And Amsterdam, it was a weird environment. You know, I liked it. I liked the fact that every single cigarette butt on the ground is filled with weed. I like that it's kind of open, but at the same time, it's just like this weird gypsy kind of tourist trap. I don't know how else to put it. But I met some really good people there as well, and I went to this community called Trijgort, and that was a like weird hippie kind of commune place that was out in the boonies. But Berlin, I think Berlin is the best city in the world that I've seen, comparable to New York or San Francisco, but I'd rather live in Berlin than any of them. And I know you were telling me about how you know, metal is kind of smaller or marginalized. But again, I'm hoping, and I think the younger generation is more open, despite everything. And I mean, yeah, bands are lazy and inherently lazy. Bands are just lazy people all the time. Musicians are the laziest people in the world. They won't return emails. They'll screw things up because we're all mess ups. You know, we're all screw ups. Everybody's stoned or drunk all the time. It just comes with the territory, and you got to deal with it. And you find also in that same vein that a lot of the people, like me doing my book, say I'll send out hundreds and hundreds of emails saying, do you want to do this, appear? The bands that always come forward are always the big bands. The really big bands are on big labels, and they invite me over to their house. You know, and then you understand why certain bands are on labels, why certain bands are signed or doing what they're doing. It's not some magic formula. It's because they care, because they actually get off their ass and do it themselves. You know, so I don't know. Berlin, I've been completely impressed by Berlin, massively impressed at every single level, because there's so much coming at you. Like in the United States, you see graffiti on the walls, and that's known as, you want to get out of there. It's a gangland. It's a bad place. Bad things will happen. Here, it's like, oh, it's just normal. It's like what we do, and I love that. I love the fact that you know, the German people. What I've noticed are they're very right to the point, very efficient, and just they'll tell you one thing, and like you ask them a question, they'll tell you, and they don't want to repeat it. It's just, you know, the kind of thing, and that's cool. Whereas Americans they're all lazy and stupid about stuff. So I guess, I don't know, maybe foreigners would come here and they'd be like, kind of like how someone would come to New York, and they come to New York and they're scared, like, oh, New Yorkers, they're so mean and this. It's like, no, New Yorkers are pushy. They're like, you know, I got to get somewhere. But if you're just like, hey, how do I get to the street? They're like, oh, okay, this and this and this and this. So the bad things you hear about New York City are like coming from people that have never lived there or don't understand. Someone screaming. But no, in general, like, I've been completely impressed with Berlin. I don't know what he's saying. And I look forward to meeting more people. All the Germans I met have been very cool. And I hope that people that watch this interview, maybe they'll take something away from what I've said, and maybe they'll check out my stuff. And the new book, Fortress Europe, will be probably done and online by spring next year. And it's a process, so I don't know, but we'll see how it goes. No problem. Cool.